"Stop being so sensitive," my mother said, loud enough for the whole backyard to hear as I scooped my 6-year-old daughter off the grass where she had landed, on her knees, sobbing, covered in bright yellow cake batter that my brother had just dumped over her head with a laugh and a phone pointed directly at her face. That one sentence from my mother is the thing I keep returning to. Not what my brother did. Not the laughter. Not the fact that 12 adults stood around a suburban backyard and watched a child get humiliated and thought it was entertainment. It's that sentence delivered in the same flat, bored tone she used when I burned toast or forgot to call on Sundays. Stop being so sensitive. Like my daughter's crying was the problem. Like my daughter was the inconvenience. Let me back up. My brother Prescott is 24. He lives with our parents in the house I have been quietly and visibly holding together for the past 3 years. He has 70,000 followers on a platform I refuse to name because I don't want to give it the dignity. His content is what people in his comments section call chaotic good, which appears to mean filming things without permission, startling strangers, and laughing at people's reactions while talking to a camera that makes everything look ironic and detached and somehow cool. He is their golden child. He always has been. He is funny and charming and effortlessly likable in the way that people who have never been held accountable for anything tend to be. My daughter's name is Poppy. She is 6. She has her father's nose and my stubbornness, and a laugh that sounds like a screen door swinging open in summer. She had been looking forward to our family's 4th of July cookout for 3 weeks. She had picked out her own outfit, a red gingham dress with white buttons, and helped me make a strawberry cake to bring. She was proud of that cake. She had measured the flour herself, standing on a step stool at my kitchen counter with her little tongue pressed between her teeth in concentration. We arrived at my parents' house at noon. The yard was already full. My parents, my aunts and uncles, cousins, neighbors. My mother had strung little paper flags along the fence. My father was manning the grill in the apron that says, "Grill Sergeant," that I have seen every summer of my entire life. It looked like every other cookout we had ever had, which is to say, it looked fine, harmless, normal. Prescott was already filming when we arrived. He had his phone out the whole afternoon, wandering around, narrating things under his breath, occasionally getting into people's faces for what he called content. Most of the adults had learned to ignore it. I had told myself I would ignore it too. I told myself it wasn't worth another argument. Every time I said something about the filming, my mother told me I was being uptight. Every time I pointed out that Prescott had crossed a line, my father said I was jealous of his following. So I had gotten very good over the years at swallowing my reactions and smiling and pretending everything was fine. I was inside helping my aunt carry out the potato salad when I heard it. A scream. Not a playing scream. A real one, the kind that punches through background noise and hits you in the chest before your brain has even processed the sound. I was out the back door before I had put down the bowl. Prescott was standing in the middle of the lawn, phone raised, laughing so hard he had tears running down his face. Around him, a cluster of relatives were also laughing, some covering their mouths, some just openly delighted. My mother was clapping. My father had turned from the grill. Poppy was on the ground in front of him. She had yellow cake batter soaked into her hair, running down her face, dripping from her chin onto her red gingham dress. There was a large plastic mixing bowl lying next to her in the grass. My strawberry cake, the one we had made together, the one she had measured flour for while standing on a step stool, had been emptied over my daughter's head while Prescott filmed it for his audience. She was on her knees in the grass with her hands covering her face, and she was shaking. I crossed the yard. I don't remember deciding to move. I just remember suddenly being there, kneeling in front of her, and then I looked up and grabbed the phone out of Prescott's hand midstream and turned the camera off. Prescott stopped laughing immediately. "What the hell? Are you okay?" I said to Poppy. She couldn't answer. She was crying too hard. "Relax," Prescott said. "It's content. She's fine. She's 6. It's content. She's fine. She's 6. It's cake batter. It washes off. Do you know how viral that would have gone? I had 40 people watching live. She's 6 years old. I stood up, keeping one arm around Poppy's shoulders. My voice was shaking. She's not content. That was when my mother walked over, not to check on Poppy. She positioned herself to my right, arms folded, and looked at me with the expression she reserves for situations where I am making a scene. "Stop being so sensitive," she said. "He was just having fun. The batter got in her eyes, Mom. It's cake, not acid. She's crying. She'll stop. You're making it worse by reacting." She turned to Prescott with a look that was almost fond. She ruined the stream. Prescott was examining his phone screen. She turned it off right at the peak moment. I had the clip and everything. He looked at me with genuine grievance, like I had wronged him. That was going to hit. You know what that would have done for my numbers? My father had drifted over from the grill. He put a hand on Prescott's shoulder. "Your sister's always been like this," he said, as though I wasn't standing right there. "Too wound up. Can't take a joke." I looked around the yard. My aunts had gone back to their conversations. My cousins were looking at their phones. My uncle had turned back to the cooler. Nobody came over. Nobody said anything. Nobody bent down to look at Poppy. I pulled her closer. She had stopped screaming, but she was still shaking, making those hitched, silent sobs that are worse than the loud ones. The batter was in her eyelashes. There was a smear of it at the corner of her mouth. "Apologize to your brother," my father said. I looked at him. "You snatched the phone. That was rude. He poured batter on my daughter. It was a prank, sweetheart." My mother's voice had gone very patient and very cold. "This is how Prescott makes his living. You could at least support him instead of torpedoing everything he works for. Apologize and we can move on." I looked down at Poppy. Her chin was tucked against her chest. She wasn't looking at anyone. "We're going to go get you cleaned up," I told her quietly. "If you walk out of this yard," my mother said, "don't expect to be included in anything going forward. I mean it. Christmas, Thanksgiving, none of it. I am exhausted by your attitude." "Okay," I said. I picked Poppy up. She wrapped her legs around my waist and pressed her face against my shoulder. I carried her through the side gate without looking back. I drove to the urgent care clinic 2 miles from my parents' house. This was not the plan I had imagined for a 4th of July afternoon, but the batter had gotten into Poppy's eyes, and even though my mother's voice was still in my head saying it's cake, not acid, I didn't know what was in that batter. I didn't know if there was something that could irritate the eyes of a 6-year-old who had been standing 2 feet away from a mixing bowl when it tipped. I wasn't going to guess. The nurse at the intake desk took one look at Poppy and brought us back immediately. She asked what happened. I told her. She asked if I wanted the incident documented. I said yes. I sat in a small examination room while a doctor with kind eyes and a steady manner checked Poppy's eyes under a light, asked her questions in a gentle voice, gave her a small stuffed animal shaped like a frog from a basket on the counter. The eyes were fine. Mild irritation, nothing serious. They sent us home with eye drops and a printed sheet of care instructions. But they also gave me a copy of the intake report. A dated, signed clinical document describing a 6-year-old brought in after a substance was poured on her face and head by an adult family member, resulting in eye irritation requiring medical evaluation. I folded that paper and put it in my purse. I drove Poppy home. She fell asleep in the car 15 minutes out, still in her batter-stiff gingham dress, the frog clutched against her chest. I carried her inside and laid her down and sat on the edge of her bed for a while in the quiet. My phone had been going off since we left the yard. I could feel it buzzing in my pocket like a wasp against my leg. I finally looked at it in the hallway outside Poppy's room. Prescott had posted a clip, not the full video, just the 40 seconds before I grabbed the phone, him approaching her with the bowl, her face as she realized what was about to happen. The moment of impact. Her on the ground, him laughing, 12 seconds of the crowd laughing, the caption, "She literally cannot take a joke. This is my sister's kid, boot." She snatched my phone after this llama. Some people have no chill. There was a crying, laughing emoji. There were 4,000 views. My mother had commented, "She's always been like this." My cousin had shared it. My father had liked it. I put the phone face down on the bathroom counter and sat on the edge of the tub and stared at the wall. They had made Poppy the punchline. They had distributed it. They were proud of it. 4,000 people had watched my daughter get humiliated, and my family had handed them the ticket. For a long time, I sat there and felt the specific kind of vertigo that comes from understanding, all at once, something you have been refusing to understand for years. I had spent my entire adult life managing this family's comfort, being the responsible one, the one who didn't make waves, the one who showed up and helped and smoothed things over and absorbed the cost of keeping the peace. I'd told myself it was worth it for Poppy, for her to have grandparents, for her to have a family. But sitting on the bathroom floor, I understood with sudden, cold clarity that what I had actually been doing was exposing her to exactly what happened today. I had kept the door open, and she had walked through it, and they had filmed it. I opened the Notes app on my phone and started making a list. This is the part that is hard to explain without sounding calculating, and I want to be clear that I was not calculating, I was not plotting. I was a 31-year-old woman sitting on a bathroom floor trying to figure out what I actually had the power to do, because the alternative, doing nothing, no longer felt survivable. Here is what I had the power to do. 3 years ago, my parents had run into serious financial trouble. My father's business had taken a loss that wiped out most of their savings. They were behind on the mortgage for the house they had lived in for 20 years, the house they had raised us in, the house where my mother's garden was and my father's grill lived on the porch, and Prescott had converted the basement into a studio with ring lights and a green screen backdrop. They came to me, not to Prescott, who was the favorite because Prescott had no money and no credit and no plan. They came to me, the responsible one, the boring one, the one who had worked 2 jobs through college and saved and built a credit score worth something. They sat at my kitchen table, and my mother held my hands and cried, which I had never seen her do before or since, and they asked me to help them. I refinanced the house under my name. I am not on the deed. We set it up as a loan arrangement, me covering the mortgage, them paying me back monthly. It was informal, no lawyers, handled with a handshake and a spreadsheet and the assumption, on their part, that I would always be there when they needed me and would never, under any circumstances, stop being there. What they didn't know, what I had almost forgotten myself because I had been too busy managing everything to keep track of the details, was that the repayment arrangement we had set up included a clause. If I ever needed to call in the loan for any reason, they had 90 days to refinance or pay off the balance. I had not written that clause to protect myself. I had written it because the lawyer I consulted briefly, a woman I found through a friend, had told me to write it. She said, put in a call-in clause. Just in case. I pulled up the loan document on my phone. I keep everything in cloud storage. Old habit. The clause was there. Paragraph 7. Clear as anything. My hands had stopped shaking by then. I noticed that. The shaking had stopped somewhere around the time I folded the urgent care report into my purse, and it hadn't come back. Prescott's video now had 11,000 views. My mother had done a follow-up comment. For context, my daughter has always struggled with being part of a fun family. Prescott is the sweetest kid. We love him so much. This comment had 47 likes. I went to check on Poppy. She was still asleep. She had shifted onto her side, still holding the frog. There was a faint trace of yellow in her hair that I had missed in the bath. I stood in the doorway and watched her breathe and made the decision. In the morning, I called the woman who had helped me set up the loan documents 3 years ago. She wasn't a full-time family lawyer, but she knew enough, and she knew me, and when I explained the situation, she was quiet for a moment and then said, "You want to call it in?" "Yes." "All right. I can draft a notice today." While she did that, I filed a complaint with the platform where Prescott had posted the video. I uploaded the urgent care report. I documented the specific clip, the timestamp, the caption. The complaint cited the posting of footage of a minor taken without parental consent in a situation that had resulted in a medical visit. I was not certain anything would come of it. I filed it anyway. That afternoon, I called my parents. My mother answered on the second ring, which meant she had been waiting for me to call and apologize. "I'm not calling to apologize," I said. Silence. "I'm calling to let you know that you'll be receiving a letter from my attorney in the next few days regarding the loan." "What loan?" "The mortgage." "The refinancing arrangement we made 3 years ago." A longer silence. "What about it?" "I'm calling it in." You have 90 days from receipt of the notice to refinance or pay the balance. I heard her breath change. You can't be serious. I'm very serious. Over a prank? Over a child's birthday party? This is insane, you know that? This is genuinely unhinged behavior, Mom. I kept my voice very level. Prescott posted a video of Poppy being humiliated. He has 15,000 views now. You commented on it. Dad liked it. I took her to urgent care because the batter got in her eyes. I have the intake report. I have all of it documented. I paused. I'm not doing this because I'm angry. I'm doing it because I finally understand that nothing is going to change unless something changes. She started talking, faster and louder. She said I was punishing the whole family for Prescott's personality. She said Poppy was fine. I was making a mountain out of nothing. I had always been difficult. I had always resented Prescott. She said if I did this, I would destroy the family and I would have to live with that. I know you believe that, I said. You ungrateful. 90 days, I said. Please don't contact me directly. All communication goes through the attorney. I hung up. The next 72 hours were loud. My phone was full of calls I didn't answer and messages I read once and set aside. My mother, my father, Prescott, my aunt, the one who would turn back to her conversation in the yard. Each of them had a version of events in which I was the villain, and each of them presented it to me like they expected it to change what I had already done. My father left a voicemail. His voice was different than I had heard it before, not angry, just confused, a little hollow. There's a letter here, from a lawyer. I don't understand what this is. This is our home. You can't, this is our home. You can't, this is our home. He said that last part twice. I listened to it 3 times because I had never heard my father sound like that, and I wanted to make sure I wasn't making a mistake. I wasn't making a mistake. I knew that because I had Poppy's urgent care report in my purse, and because Prescott's video still had his caption on it, and because my mother had commented on it, and because not one person in that backyard had come over to check if a 6-year-old was okay. Prescott's video got taken down on the 4th day. I don't know if it was the platform review or a combination of things. It was just gone. He posted about it, furious, calling it censorship, calling me names I won't repeat. His followers were sympathetic. Some of them found my name and sent me messages. I had already set my accounts to private. I didn't read most of them. My parents found an attorney of their own. There was a brief back and forth in which their lawyer argued the call-in clause was unreasonable, and mine said it was in the signed document you agreed to. After 2 weeks, the conversation ended. The 90 days stood. My parents started looking for somewhere to rent. I know this because my aunt, a different one, a quieter one who had been in the yard that day and also had not come over, but who texted me 2 weeks later saying simply, "I'm sorry I didn't say anything," told me they were looking at apartments on the other side of town. Prescott was apparently looking at renting his own place, which would be the first time in his life he had done that. The house is being handled by the attorney. I'm not going to see any of the money for several months. That is fine. I did not do this for the money. I did it because it was the only lever I had, and because my daughter had asked me. In the quiet of the urgent care waiting room, with a frog clutched against her chest and batter still in her hair. "Mommy, does Uncle Prescott think I'm funny?" And I had said, "No, baby. He thinks views are funny. There's a difference." And she had thought about that for a moment and then said, "I don't want to go back there." "You don't have to," I told her. She nodded, very seriously, like we had just signed a contract. Then she looked down at the frog. "Can I name him? You can name him whatever you want." She named him Gerald. I don't know where she got Gerald. She has never explained it, and I have not asked. Gerald lives on her nightstand now in the new apartment we moved into 6 weeks after the 4th of July. It's smaller than the old one, farther from my office, closer to a park. Poppy likes where there's a specific swing set she has opinions about. We have a little balcony where I've been trying to grow herbs with mixed results. The basil is fine. The cilantro has given up. I drove past my parents' old street last week, not on purpose, just because the route wrapped around. The house had a for sale sign in the yard. My parents are renting somewhere now. I don't know where exactly. My aunt, the quieter one, checks in occasionally. She doesn't give me updates unless I ask. I don't ask. Poppy started first grade last month. On her first day, she wore a new dress, yellow, her choice, and carried a backpack shaped like a hedgehog. She's learning to read chapter books. She likes math when it involves shapes and dislikes math when it involves memorizing things, which I understand completely because I am the same way. She hasn't asked about her grandparents again. I am aware that this will not last forever, that at some point she will want explanations I'm not sure how to give, that growing up involves asking hard questions about the people who were supposed to love you. I'm not ready for that conversation, but I think the truest thing I can offer her, when we get there, is this. I waited a long time to protect you properly, and I'm sorry for the time I wasted, and it took me too long to understand that keeping a door open is not the same thing as keeping you safe. That afternoon in the backyard, when I was carrying her through the gate, I heard my mother call after me. She said if I walked out, I couldn't come back. She meant it as a threat. She meant it to stop me. I kept walking. She was right that I couldn't come back, but she had the logic backwards. I wasn't leaving because she told me to. I was leaving because I finally understood that I had been choosing for years to stay somewhere that cost us more than it gave us. And the only thing that had changed was that I was done making that choice. Gerald is on the nightstand. The cilantro is struggling. Poppy is reading chapter books. We're fine. I've thought a lot about what I would have done differently, and the honest answer is almost nothing about the day itself. I would have grabbed the phone sooner. I would have driven to urgent care faster. But the part that took me longest to reckon with isn't the 4th of July. It's the 10 years before it. I spent a decade making myself smaller so that the people around me could feel larger. I told myself that was generosity. That was love. That was what you do for family. And some of it was genuinely, I believe that. But some of it was fear dressed up as kindness, and I am only now at 31 starting to tell the difference. Here is what I understand now that I didn't understand then. The choices we keep making, even when they hurt us, are always doing something for us. Mine remind me the feeling of being needed, of being the responsible one, of having a role in a family that otherwise didn't seem to have much use for me. That's not a comfortable thing to write. But it's true, and I think the truth of it matters more than the discomfort. Prescott poured batter on my daughter because he had learned, over a lifetime, that there were no real consequences for treating people as props. My parents laughed because they had practiced, for years, calling cruelty a sense of humor, and I had let it go on, again and again, because I had decided that the cost of staying was lower than the cost of leaving. Every one of those choices, made by all of us over many years, led directly to Poppy on her knees in the grass with her hands over her face. That's not fate. That's not bad luck. That's cause and effect, plain and patient, working exactly as it always does. What changed for me? What actually changed? Not in a dramatic way, but in the way that real changes tend to happen, quietly and all at once, was that I stopped making the calculation about what I could absorb and started making it about what Poppy deserved. Those are not the same calculation. They lead to completely different answers. Protecting her required me to be willing to be the villain in their story, and I am. In Prescott's version, I am a controlling, humorless, jealous older sister who destroyed his platform and his living situation because she can't take a joke. In my mother's version, I am the ungrateful daughter who weaponized a loan and blew up the family over a prank. I don't get to correct those versions. I can't make them see it differently. What I can do is make sure that Poppy grows up watching what it looks like when someone chooses her clearly and without apology. I think that is the only real thing I have to teach her, not a lesson about toxic family or legal clauses or knowing your rights, though all of that matters too. The deeper thing, the one I want her to carry, is this. Your love for someone is not proven by how much you will endure for them. It's proven by how clearly you see them and how honestly you act on what you see. I saw Poppy in that yard. I finally, fully saw her. Gerald is still on the nightstand. The basil is doing fine.